Greetings, spiritual sages and magical mages, and all of you listening out there. Welcome to Age of the Mage podcast, and we are on episode 34. And I'm going to invite you today through this episode to join me on an experimental and explorative journey that I am personally taking. For many, many years, I have received, I would call them downloads or telepathic types of transmissions from other beings in other realms. And sometimes I have also met some of these beings inside of dreams and meditation work. And so I have developed a long history of coming to trust these experiences I've had because many of them were clearly validated in the 3D world with enough evidence to suggest that I was accessing information from somewhere reliable. And the other part of my past that ties into where we're going to go here is that I've had exposure to different types of energies, very distinct. And I do have the background where I came up against some very dark energies. I would even say evil a few times in my life. I'm very fortunate. This has not happened very often. And so I know some people it's part of their karmic lesson and maybe ties it to their destiny, and they deal with that all the time through various means. But I've been blessed, or at least it hasn't been a large part of my path. And so I've only run across it a few times, and it is very different. The energy that comes from darkness is so evident when it's really attached to something evil or malicious. And so I began to trust my judgment of who was speaking to me based on all this many, many years of experience. Now, I am aware that even there can be this kind of medium ground where you get an entity without, that doesn't really have the purest of intentions. Let's say they're not all the way down at the darkest levels, but they're somewhere in between, and they might want to really pull you off your path or distract you. So they're not very helpful. And it's harder to discern if you're dealing with one of those beings when you reach out and contact an entity in another realm, or when they reach out and contact you. Sometimes that discernment's tricky when it's more in the middle and it's not so apparent that it's just full of light or it's full of darkness, but somewhere in between. So I think this is where all of us need to work on a discernment, because as I understand it, as these energies that are really accumulating and intensifying right now on our planet, they're going to open up and kind of press open many more portals and merge different kinds of dimensions together, more than we've seen in the past. In other words, more people might be reporting UFOs that they see, more people will start reporting that they see more ghosts, or they're having more paranormal events, or more synchronicity is happening in their lives, or even people reporting they are seeing shadow beings, they're seeing beings from other realms. We will have more and more dreams, which probably are the type that connect us directly to other realms, not just subconscious symbolism. All these kinds of activities is really going to pick up in the coming years now. And we, as magicians and spiritual workers and galactic beings, we are already very familiar with this type of event and these feelings. And so we've worked through a lot of the issues that come with seeing all this. But just imagine it getting greater and greater and more expansive. And not only will we have more of these experiences ourselves, but we'll be seeing people and friends who have never had such experiences start to have this, and they'll be confused and frightened, and those various emotions that come with this. And we are going to be there to help as guides and help as mentors, of course. So anyway, this is all about this discernment, this feeling like who's speaking to me, or what message am I getting, and can I trust that message? So this ties into where I'm kind of heading. Because lately, I was told long ago that if I would let go of some of my fears and some of my skepticism, that I would just become able to receive these downloads, receive these transmissions constantly, that I would become very open to these and a good person to receive these messages and then share them with others. And I don't know, I've spent a lot of time in kind of hesitant, I suppose, and maybe resisting this particular aspect of my messenger calling. But it's just not letting go of me right now. It's so intense. And maybe it's part of the times. Maybe it is appropriate now to work with this more and more and begin to share these messages with you, because maybe the time is demanding it now. That we need these messages out there, and I can no longer just keep holding them back and in doubts and things like that. But I want you to know at the outset of this journey we'll be taking in this particular part of the podcast that I myself have struggled and really spent hours and hours, um, you know, attempting to use the best of my knowledge and the best of my discernment and analysis to figure out who I want to contact, who I want to allow to, you know, join with me in my energy field to get messages from. And so I would only share those that I feel come from very high quality transmissions. And at this point, I have trust in those that are speaking to me. And I won't be sharing the ones that if anything comes along that I just don't feel right about, I won't be sharing that. I will take extra precautions and spend time with that before and make sure I feel good and have some evidence piling up about who's speaking to me before I share that. So what I want to start today is a little bit of information about angels. I have referred to angels when I speak about who has helped me on and off throughout my life. I have referred to them as my angels, and yet that's probably not entirely accurate. It's accurate in that when I was speaking about them, they were light, very light beings, and I felt very good from around in their presence, and I felt almost a divinity, a type of energy that you could call angelic, and yet there were probably some of these messengers that I have put into the angel category that were maybe more ancestral, or a guide, or someone that cared about me, or had different roles, and maybe weren't all actually, if you're very, very careful with the terminology, wouldn't fit into an angel category, but that's how they felt to me. And so it was one of the easiest ways to describe my contact with others. Now, when I knew specifically that I was getting a message from someone that didn't fit into that same feeling or that same category, I would make sure I just referred to that being separately. So I have tried to be careful on how I use this, but in the last few years, I've come across more and more high magic, and I'm suddenly, maybe 3-4 years ago, have started experiencing this pull towards that style of magic and using the angelic calls that are included. This magic kind of grows out of ancient traditions of magic, some Egyptian, some of the Judaic, Kabbalah mysticism, and I believe they even come from prior times, the Sumerian times, some of the things that Stitchin refers to in his books with the Anunnaki, and it probably even goes back further than that into other time periods and other eras when the same group of beings were working with humans on Earth. So it's hard to pinpoint the exact time that these styles of magic, or when people started using these angelic names, actually came about. But we certainly can find it in magical traditions, in modern magic, and they trace back at least through Hebrew and Egyptian traditions and things there. So we know we go that far back with these. And the this type of magic is very specific, highly ritualistic, I would say, and relies on certain tones, and the names of the angels and other words need to be uttered out loud as correctly as possible. So there is a tie-in to how the ritual is done. It can involve sigils, it can involve intoning these names, and it's a little more formalized than just making up your own spell or experimenting and things like that. There's a bit more formality here. Now, I wasn't as drawn to this form of magic in prior years, but as I say, it is becoming more and more important to me. And I'm by no means an expert in this yet, but I am learning. So this is part of the journey that I am leading us, inviting you to join me on. I had an experience, I'm trying to remember now, I'll get the exact date one of these times, but maybe 4 years ago, coming up on 4 years ago, where I was directly involved in the 3D world in helping a particular family, and we came up against an extremely dark energy. And when I went to work in my usual ways to see if I could break contacts with that energy and things, I was warned off. I was told, no, this is beyond your capacity. And in your words, you're dealing with a demon here. You're dealing with this kind of paradigm, and you're not equipped. So I knew I had to do something, and I kind of I said, well, what can I do? What can I do? And the answer came in, you need, to fight, you need to handle this within the same paradigm. And what you'll need to do is call on angels. And when I heard this message, I knew they didn't mean just casually ask an angel. It had all this message with it that I needed to get online, perhaps, get some books, research angels, see which angels did what kind of things, and take some serious approach to this and choose an angel or a few angels that could help with this problem. And so that's what I did. I jumped up, got online, and researched for the next 6 hours. I downloaded a couple books, and I pored over those. And within just a day and a half, I could I could feel the power in some of these names. And I thought these are the ones that I would like to ask to help with this situation. And I did. I proceeded to do that in not quite a straight up ritual, but more formal than I normally would have. And I felt it was interesting because I kept feeling like, can I bother them with this? I mean, yeah, these are big, powerful guys. Is this something I could trouble them with? And I kept getting a confirmation. Absolutely, yes, that is why they're here. And if they do not respond themselves, they have others working with them that will definitely help you. And so I kept getting that confirmation that it was all right. It was all right to bother them and ask for help. So I did. And the situation unfolded in such a way that I just don't have any doubt that those angels did not come on board and see the entire situation through. So it was a very positive and powerful experience overall. And it got me thinking, it got me back to this idea like, well, what are these angels? Who am I really calling on? What is this? What is this tradition all about? And so this proceeded to, push at me and push at me. And then I ended up having two more angel type experiences. And they weren't so much associated with ritual either, but it was kind of a medium thing where I took more time to think about which angel I would ask and call on. And I did a little bit of a kind of a mini ritual about it. And again, had two very strong experiences. So this has been coming on to me stronger and stronger for the last 4 to 5 years. And so what happened was I knew I needed more information. I was not completely comfortable with calling on angelic names. I could sense the power there, but I I like to know who I'm dealing with whenever I can. I know there's so much we'll never know, but I like to have a good sense that I am not getting myself into some kind of you know, false negative contract or something that could come back to hurt me, or owe the wrong type of beings in, any part of myself. I want to be very clear. And so I kept wondering, and I thought, well, I this is the time. This is the time to go ahead and open myself up and get some information if I can. And that just started the floodgates, because once I was willing to sit down and receive transmissions again, and I opened my mind up to these, and I let my skepticism and doubts and fears fall aside, then I did start receiving information. And so this is what I'd like to begin to share with you. And the reason is this: the last couple weeks, all I can, at this point, what I'm going to call them is angels, they have pushed and pushed me to begin to speak to you about them. And I am getting a very distinct feeling that they've told me there are those of you out there listening and who will listen that they have messages for. And you must be connected to some of these angels, some of you that are listening, in very powerful ways, because they are just simply not letting go of this. And a couple weeks ago, I got that push to call out for the protectors, the guardians, and I know many of you have heard that podcast. And this push is equal, if not more, to the feelings that came over me to call for the guardians at this time. This is a constant push for me. I am dealing with it all the time. It is in the back of my mind that I am to share what they have to tell, what they're telling me with you. And beyond the general information I'm receiving in transmissions, they are being very specific that there are those of you listening that they have deep and strong connections to and want to reach. And so I think as time goes on with this angel journey of ours, discovering who and what they might really be, that I think I will start getting some individual names of angels, and they are going to reach out to some of you. So that is the background. That's why this is what I wanted to share for those of you that want to embark on this. As I say, I will be learning as we go. I will be gathering up my courage to share these messages with you. And we should all use our discernment. We all must, anytime we receive messages of our own or through anyone else, it's very important that we take these messages into our own etheric fields of energy and assess them for ourselves, because they will not all fit. Not one person, not one channeler, not one person in the internet or in this world has all the answers that fit you, because you are so unique. Your path is so carved out just for you. And you will find all of your own guides on your journey and your own connections. And so not every contribution that even a wise person might suggest to you or you might hear about is really for you to adopt. Obviously, you need the freedom to feel your way on your magical and spiritual journeys and take what you will. What resonates for you is what you would want to adopt into your path. And the other things you can let go of because they are meant for someone else, and that's perfectly appropriate. So no matter what I talk about on the podcast, please always do that. Always take your own wisdom and your own feelings, and, filter everything through those things, because that is the way you want to proceed, and that heightens your own discernment, and it brings you better alignment for your own purposes and your own dreams and your own callings. And so you always want to do that, of course. And the reason I'm really stressing that right now is that this angelic journey is going to involve quite a few transmissions, messages from another realm. And so it's doubly important, I think, that we all realize that we are existing. When we're communicating with other realms, we're walking across bridges of faith and trust. And we're doing the best we can to make sure we screen and protect our fields so that we're just, we're talking to the highest and best and most benevolent beings. But at the same time, we have to allow for the idea that we could get disinformation, or we could interpret them or hear it through a language that is not exactly accurate, and that could cause some misinterpretations that they don't even intend. So we do have to allow for a percentage of error when we share these kind of messages and when we receive these messages, because it's not, we all know how hard it is to even communicate with our fellow humans. It's easy to get misunderstandings, even when we speak the same language and we understand each other, and we can still misunderstand. We can still interpret things wrong. So when you're going between realms, it's even more. That's even more the case. So this is why I am introducing this whole part of the journey with such a long introduction, so that everyone's on the same page and knows my true feelings about this. I want you to understand that I am just like you. I question things that happen to me, and I'm finding my own ways to magnetize myself to the highest and best path. And I have learned a lot over many years, and I know I have this calling to reach out to you. And so I feel like I have a few extra gifts along these lines, but by no means am I perfect either, and I can always make a mistake. It's entirely possible. So before we launch out and we launch our boats onto this river, onto this experience, I did want to preface with all the things going on inside of me and my feelings about it, so that you will each understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this podcast at this point. This is the introduction to what we'll be doing. And in the next podcast, I am going to read and just tell you a few of my feelings that I got when I went ahead and sat down and received the first angelic transmission. And we'll go over it. And then in the next podcast, I just received another very long transmission just this week. As I say, the pressure is building to go ahead and dedicate some time to these transmissions and then share them with you. So I'm going ahead and honoring that. And so we'll spend the next two podcasts going over the exact transmission and some of the quotes in the actual speech that the beings who communicated with me. I'll just read their direct transmission to you and then make some comments on it, things like that. And we'll begin this journey and honor the push I'm getting. And I will continue to ask for more information, because as you will see, I think these transmissions raise as many questions as they answer. And so it's going to be a process to get bits and pieces of it really understood. But we have to start somewhere, and that is what we're going to do. So I thank you. And those of you who would like to take part and hear more about the angelic transmissions, please join me for the next couple of podcasts. And another thing you can do is the entire first transmission I already read all the way through and published on YouTube. And so it is at my YouTube channel, Mary Gabrielle, and it is what are angels, or something like that. I will include the link in the descriptions so that any of you can find that if you would like, because when I go to the next podcast, I may not read the entire transmission. We're just going to go over some of the main points. And so if any of you want to listen to the entire thing, you can do that on the YouTube channel. And the other thing I will do is get these transcribed for you so that you can download them as PDFs and read through them, because they're complex, and sometimes just hearing it audibly is hard. So I will get those transcriptions also done and leave some links for those. You can always find these extra things like transcriptions and art, imagery, things like that on at the Modern Masters site. So you would go to modernmasters.org/age-of-the-mage. And I'll leave that link too in the description. So I will always post things like the PDFs and extra materials on that page for you too. Thank you so much again for joining me, and I'm excited. I'm excited to share this with you. I hope we do move through this journey together, and that some of you waiting to hear or waiting to feel your connections to certain angels will be able to do so, and that you'll come together, and that will be your work, and it will be highly rewarding and just exactly meant for you. So I'll leave you for today. I will say bye for now, and I'll return soon.